everybody. This is Jack Hammer. Want to get on here today and go through a little bit of a 49ers Falcons preview show for you. As you know, I write for the Santa Rosa Press Democrat and the Inside the 49ers blog there, 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Just start off with some of the injury updates really quick for this week. Yesterday was announced that Elijah Mitchell will be missing this game. It'll be his second consecutive game missed. He had a concussion, if you remember, in week 13 up in Seattle, as well as having a little bit of a knee injury. So he has been ruled out for this week. Also out for the 49ers this week will be defensive tackle Dre Greenlaw linebacker Dre Greenlaw and defensive tackle Maurice Hurst. DJ Jones, Jaquaski Tart, and Embry Thomas are all listed as questionable, but expected to play. One other key piece of information is that Dante Johnson, the cornerback who missed last week's game due to the death of his mother, was back at practice on Friday, and Kyle Shanahan stated that he expects Johnson to be ready to play on Sunday. So that's some good news for the 49ers there. In addition to that, the 49ers today elevated the following two players from their practice squad up to the active roster for this week, and that would be running back Brian Hill and safety Jared Wilson. Hill becomes a necessity for two reasons. One, the 49ers don't have Trenton Cannon, and two, without Mitchell going, they're short a running back there as well. So makes sense to bring in another running back to the active roster. And then Wilson will be able to help out with special teams as well. The injuries to Mitchell and Wilson caused a little bit of a problem. You know, in Mitchell's absence last week against the 49ers, they turned to Jeff Wilson Jr. and Deebo Samuel. Those two played fairly well against Cincinnati, gaining 93 total yards on 21 rushing attempts. A big chunk of that, though, came on the 27-yard touchdown run from Deebo Samuel. So the 49ers running game was a little bit hit and miss. Wilson had some really nice carries. He had some not so good ones as well. Part of that is also due to the 49ers running game and the way that Cincinnati was able to really focus and just seemed very prepared with everywhere that the ball was going. And they were flowing very hard downhill and able to make those tackles on them pretty quick, really kind of just overpowering the 49ers front with more people in the area of the ball than the 49ers could put there to block. So that was a struggle last week for the 49ers. We'll get to that a little bit here in a minute as well when we take a look at the 5 keys to the game. The other injury to keep a note of is going to be Azeez Al-Shaair. The 49ers linebacker has been ruled doubtful. So far this season, every player that's been ruled as doubtful on Friday has missed a game on Sunday, so I wouldn't expect to see Al-Shaair play this week. That loss could possibly create a lot of problems for the 49ers, especially in pass coverage. When you take a look at Atlanta's offense, their top 2 receivers are their tight end Kyle Pitts and their wide receiver / running back Cordero Patterson. So those are 2 players that, based off of where they usually line up, that generally means that you're going to be having linebackers and a lot of coverage on those 2 players. Maybe, and I would say don't be surprised to see Jimmy Ward coming down into the box every once in a while to match up with Kyle Pitts in coverage. We've seen the veteran safety do this a number of times throughout his career with the 49ers. It's something that it really takes pride in, being able to go in and shut down that opposing tight end. And with everything that's going on with the loss of Al-Shaair, this could be a good time for Ward to step up and show his value for the team once again. Remember, the 49ers played pretty well on defense up in Seattle when they didn't have Fred Warner. So, you know, this week they have their All-Pro. Hopefully that would make, for the 49ers, that would mean that the drop-off wouldn't be too substantial. Now let's go ahead and let's jump into the five keys for this week's game up at Levi Stadium here in Santa Clara. We're going to jump in with the first one. Can Jimmy Garoppolo stay hot? We always like to talk about the quarterback, and that's a very important position, obviously, and especially with the 49ers and the way that their running game struggled a little bit last week, and the way that the 49ers offense had to kind of turn to him to make some more plays than they normally would. You know, after the 49ers started off the season 2-4, they've really been able to rebound over the last 7 weeks with 5 wins. And during that time, the 49ers passing game, led by Garoppolo, has been among the best in the NFL. Garoppolo's averaged 260 yards per game with 11 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, while completing 68% of his pass attempts over these last 7 weeks. And Garoppolo's going to be facing an Atlanta defense, which has allowed over 249 yards per game on the road this season. When you look at Atlanta, they're very strong against the run, not so great against the pass. One of the other things that could play into Jimmy Garoppolo's favor and the Flyers passing game this week is the Atlanta pass rush. Garoppolo last week against Cincinnati was sacked 5 times. This week, though, he gets to face an Atlanta defense that's really struggled with getting after the quarterback, recording the fewest sacks on the NFL with only 16. So about a little over 1 a game. So that should help the 49ers, especially when you look at some of their weaknesses. Say, for example, at right tackle, where Tom Compton is a very good run blocker, but he struggles in the passing game, especially in third and long situations where you can tell that it's going to be a pass. So, that's just something to keep an eye on there. Another thing to keep an eye on is that teams have been able to find success against Atlanta in the screen game. So look for Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and maybe even Juwan Jennings, who have proven to be very good at this, to get a number of screens tomorrow, especially if the running game struggles. So, go back to the loss of Elijah Mitchell. No Mitchell. 49ers passing game, the running game maybe not getting going like they wanted to go. What we saw last week in Cincinnati was an offense that went to play action where they were doing a lot of boots and rollouts, some screens early on. If you remember, that second possession of the game opened up with a screen from Garoppolo to Ayuk. They came back on the next play with an easy boot throw to George Kittle to pick up a first down. Then they went right back to the screen on the other side of the field to Ayuk. And you saw that kind of play out throughout the game on first down, where the 49ers were very successful through the air. I think they were 14 to 15, 157 yards, a couple of touchdowns, but the majority of those weren't tough down the field throws. There were a couple of them down the field, but for the most part, those first and 10 throws were play action, boot left, boot right, easy throws for Garoppolo, really just extensions of the run game because they were having struggle getting that going. And so speaking of the run game and the 49ers having some difficulty there, that's another question for this week. Can the 49ers find consistency in their running game? They haven't been able to do that very well this year. They've been a little bit up and down over these last few weeks. And when you look at the last 2 weeks, talking about Seattle and Cincinnati, the 49ers running game is combined for 171 yards. That doesn't seem bad, but when you compare that to what the 49ers have been doing throughout the year, that is their lowest total in back-to-back weeks this season. And while Atlanta has struggled against the pass, like we talked about, they've done a really good job of stopping the run. The Falcons come into this game tied for seventh best rushing defense on the road. And they've been allowing only 3.9 yards per carry in their games away from Atlanta. One of the teams tied with Atlanta is Green Bay. You may remember how the 49ers struggled to get their running game going in that contest back in week 3, which also led to Garoppolo throwing 40 times in that matchup. So can they find some consistency there? One of the players to watch for in this matchup is going to be Grady Jarrett. The Falcons defensive tackle is having another really strong year with 44 tackles, including 3 for loss. He has 11 hits on the quarterback. He's one of the leaders on the Falcons team in that stat as well. So this is going to be a tough matchup, I think, up front. You're going to have to see Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill, and Laken Tomlinson. They're really going to have their hands full with Jarrett. We've seen that interior of the 49ers offensive line struggle with strong interior going up against a strong interior presence. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on this week. And I think that's part of the reason why when you look at Atlanta overall, even though they're only 6-7, they're 5-2 on the road. So while they've been really bad at home, they've been really good away from home. And this is another road game for them, and definitely one that I think is going to be a little bit more difficult than it would seem to be just based off of the records. Number 3, and this is another big one. Now we're turning to the 49ers defense. Will the 49ers defense be able to limit Cordero Patterson? This game features 2 teams with wide receivers that also receive snaps at running back. 49ers fans are used to seeing Deebo Samuel lined up in the backfield every once in a while, but Atlanta does the same thing with Patterson. The only difference being the percentage of snaps that Patterson takes in the backfield compared to Samuel. Samuel's usually only going to be in the backfield for a handful of snaps each week, but meanwhile, Patterson spends over half the time in the backfield. He spends the majority of his time in the running back role. And this strategy has led to Patterson being Atlanta's leading rusher with 547 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. And when Patterson isn't beating opponents on the ground, he's beating them with his hands. He's second among the Falcons receivers with 519 yards and 5 touchdowns on 46 receptions there as well. So like we talked about at the beginning, those injuries, especially to Alshire, this is a guy who Patterson is a player that he'd be matching up with quite a bit. Not having him there could lead to some issues for this 49ers defense this week. And if San Francisco's defense is not able to keep Patterson in check, it could be a long day for them. Number 4, will the San Francisco defense get to Matt Ryan? Kyle Shanahan, used to coach in Atlanta, so he's very familiar with Ryan. And he was asked this week where Ryan is at right now with his game and what his biggest concern is trying to defend Ryan. And this is what Shanahan had to say. I just know what Matt is capable of. You can still see how well he is playing on third down. I think that's the area that they're best in, and it starts with him. It doesn't matter how good you block people. If someone's open, he's going to hit them. So you have to make sure you cover your people. If you want to get to them, Matt's a heck of a quarterback. I still think he's playing at a high level. Ryan has been able to, here's the thing with Ryan though, he's only been able to top 200 yards passing in 3 times since losing top wide receiver Calvin Ridley, who left the team following week 5 in order to address some mental health issues. So since that period, way back in week 5, there's only been 3 times that Ryan's been able to top 200 yards. When you look at Atlanta, aside from Patterson, Ryan's top 2 targets have been rookie tight end Kyle Pitts and Russell Gage. San Francisco's defense will be like as we mentioned, is likely to be out without Azeez Al-Shaair, and that could pose a problem for the Flyers defense and give some advantage to Ryan. Gage also has come on strong in recent weeks. Over the last 4 weeks, the wideout has been able to take advantage of zone coverage to more than double his productivity with 26 receptions for 305 yards and 1 touchdown. That's just in the last 4 weeks for Russell Gage. If the 49ers try to sit in zone coverage like they did last week, Ryan could make them pay unless San Francisco's pass rush can get to him. Again, this is another area in which Atlanta has excelled at away from home. While their pass rush isn't very good away from the Mercedes-Benz Dome, their pass protection has been excellent, allowing only 1.3 sacks per game on the road this season, which is tied for the best in the NFL. Last but not least, let's take a look at probably what I think is the most important key for the 49ers this week. And I've been saying this for a while now, going back to the Rams game. This has been for the most part, been one of my keys. The only time I didn't use it as one of the keys to the game was when they were going to the week of the Seattle game. I didn't put it in that week, but it's really can San Francisco hold on to the ball? The ability to hold on to the ball has proven to be the best indicator of success for San Francisco this year. When San Francisco wins the turnover battle, they're 5-0. That drops to 1-2 if they have as many turnovers as takeaways. So if the 49ers win the turnover battle, they're 5-0. Even if they're even, that gets them to 6-2. So that's not too bad. But the problem for the 49ers is that when they lose the turnover battle, they're only 1-4. So for the 49ers to win this week, they need to hold on to the football. But when you look at this could actually possibly play into the 49ers' favor on Sunday. Atlanta has turned the ball over in 10 of their 13 games this season, including 6 of 7 on the road, and have won the turnover battle only 3 times this season. So that really plays to the 49ers' benefit there. If the 49ers can get some takeaways, which Atlanta has shown that they will do, Atlanta has shown that they will give the ball up in their road contest this year. If the 49ers can do what they need to do, that will definitely help them out with getting the victory tomorrow. And then as far as my prediction for the game, I have the 49ers in a close one, winning 27-21. Taking a look at it, the Falcons, for the most part, have been, like I said, they've been better on the road, but they're still giving up around 27 points a game, 28 points a game, right in that neighborhood. They're scoring right around 22, 23. I just feel like the 49ers defense is going to be able to come in and be strong. I understand that the Al-Shaair thing is going to be a concern. The 49ers with the one thing that I think is a positive there is if they can continue to slow the running game down with Patterson, even without having, even with Marcel Harris being the guy, because that's most likely who will be replacing Alshire tomorrow. I think I think if they can shut down the run, having Harris there in the at linebacker will help their pass coverage. In actuality, with Harris being a former safety, and I believe what we'll see also is the 49ers bringing Talanoa Hufanga down into the box a little bit. We've seen them do that. We saw them do that actually last week, and we saw them do that in Seattle as well. So I think the 49ers pass defense is going to be okay. Their pass rush has really stepped it up over the last 7 weeks since they made the move to put really when D Ford was lost for the season, they moved Samson Ebicom into the starting lineup over there at the at left end, or excuse me, at the right side. Moved Nick Bosa over to the other area. So Bosa mostly plays on the left. On the right side, you have Ebicom, and then what you've got from there is you have Arden Key playing more inside in pass rushing situations, and of course everybody's favorite defensive tackle Eric Armstead starting full time on the inside now instead of going back and forth between outside and inside. So since the 49ers did that, their pass rush has really improved. We've seen them their sack numbers have jumped up from 12 to 21. Their quarterback hits have jumped from, I think it was 24, 28, I believe it was. It's over 37. So their numbers have increased. I'm not sure exactly. I know that the sack number, though, went from 12 to 21 over the last 7 weeks. And one of the other pieces of that is Nick Bosa has always been getting his numbers. His sack totals are still the same. He's still far ahead of everybody else on the 49ers when it comes to quarterback hits as well. But when you look at the percentage of quarterback hits for the 49ers, over the first 6 weeks, it was Nick Bosa. He was coming in with half of them. He had half of the quarterback hits, and then over the last 7 weeks, since that change with Ford leaving, his sack percentage or his quarterback hit percentage, excuse me, has gone from 50% of the 49ers defense's quarterback hits down to 40. So a little bit, about a 10% drop there, and that's because you've had the guys around him step up. Ebicom's done a very good job of getting to the quarterback, although it's not showing up in the sack totals. Eric Armstead has improved in terms of his ability to get to the quarterback. And then you also have Arden Key, who has stepped up and played very well in that new role, rushing from the inside. So I think this week against a quarterback like Matt Ryan, who isn't quite as mobile as some of the other quarterbacks that the 49ers have faced, especially the last 2 weeks, I think we're going to be able to see the 49ers pass rush get home a little bit more often, which should help them out on the back end with their coverage, because quarterbacks don't like to be pressured. They don't like that pressure up the middle. They don't like to try to stand in and get hit while they're throwing. So if the 49ers can do what they need to do on the defensive side of the ball, I think the 49ers on the offense are going to be just fine and be able to put some points up on the board. And then Luke over here, and I agree with what he has to say. I have it closer than most 49ers reporters because Mitchell won't play. I think Niners win, but I would not at all be surprised that the Falcons won. And I don't disagree with this either. I look at this. I look at the I think the betting line, I think, is still 9.5 as far as the spread. That number doesn't make sense to me when you look at what Atlanta's done on the road compared to playing at home. I think what you're seeing is just looking at their overall numbers. It does look like this should be a matchup that really favors the 49ers, but then you start looking at their splits and you look at what Atlanta's been doing on the road compared to what they've been doing at home. And for whatever reason, they're a different team on the road than they are at home, just like we saw with the 49ers, how well they've done on the road compared to Levi Stadium. Atlanta is very similar to that. So we'll see how the game plays out. But yeah, I would be surprised if this game is a blowout tomorrow. I expect it to be a very tight contest. My point total there of 27-21 might be even a little wide, but it should be a tough contest for the 49ers, and this is a big one for the 49ers. San Francisco comes into this game at 7-6. Atlanta 6-7. The problem for the 49ers is a loss tomorrow to Atlanta really hurts them in the playoff race. I think they're if a win tomorrow means that there is something like over 90% probability of reaching the playoffs, whereas a loss drops them down to about 34%, somewhere in that ballpark. And it makes sense because if the 49ers lose tomorrow, they're going to drop to 7-7. Atlanta goes up to 7-7. So they're tied, but in reality, Atlanta actually passes them and gets ahead of them because at 7-7, with them tied there, Atlanta gets the tiebreaker due to the head-to-head victory. So it's really a big game tomorrow for the 49ers. It's a little bit different than when these two teams faced off in Week 15 back in 2019, where the 49ers were coming off of a big overtime victory or big victory out in New Orleans, coming home, playing a team that wasn't, even in the playoff consideration, was completely out of it, and had just a bad performance with a loss. So at the end of that game, 49ers this time need to be focused and ready to go. This hopefully based off of everything that kind of rides on this game. The 49ers have been able to lock in this weekend at practice because that's what it's going to take for them to come out with a victory tomorrow. So that's the show for today. Hopefully you enjoyed what I have to hear, what I had to say. If you could please hit that like button, comment, those types of things, that'd be fantastic for the blog, for the site. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the little notification button as well, the little bell, so that you get notified anytime I go on live. And then also, as you see scrolling across the bottom, it says 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That is the Inside the 49ers blog at the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. So you can find my writing there every day. There's new content that gets added. Today was the preview for this week's game. Yesterday was the injury update on Fridays, but there's always new information that's being placed there. Another article this week was the one thing that the 49ers did that's really led to their success of the season, as well as a piece that I put together on Jimmy Garoppolo and what makes him so good, regardless of what you hear from some of his detractors. So thanks very much. I will be back tomorrow. We have the game tomorrow, and I will be back after the game with a breakdown then. So please keep your eye out on the page. Get to the 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Check that out. There will be a live blog throughout the game with analysis and updates. So you can follow along to get all of my thoughts as the game is going live there tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll be back at you soon.